Hello, everyone. This is Judge Jennifer Brunner, and we're here with our interview series of judicial candidates called Achieving Justice. And today I am so pleased to have with me Ginger Bock, who is running for the First District Court of Appeals in Hamilton County, Ohio. Sometimes when you run statewide, you forget what county you're in, and especially during a pandemic, and you're zooming all over the state, you don't always remember which county you're in either. So Ginger, I am so glad to have you here today. I met you in Cincinnati several times, and you seem to be running a very aggressive and competent race for the First District Court of Appeals. So welcome, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the office?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I absolutely loved meeting you, and I'm excited that we're going to be on the same slate.
Me too.
So I ran in 2018 as well, and I came very close, but I did a lot better than most people thought I was going to do. So I'm running again in 2020 because I think it's so important that we have a bench that recognizes disparities in our justice system and works to change them. We need a bench that's going to work hard to make sure that we have transparency and that we are setting precedent in our county rather than letting all the other counties set it for us. And we also need to work to remove barriers to justice, and judges need to make that a priority.
So explain to me what you're talking about, that you need to set precedent in the county, because in the 10th district where I currently serve on the Court of Appeals, unless it's an appeal that somebody didn't file on time, or we just simply lack jurisdiction, every decision that goes out of our court is a written decision with the reasons why we came to the conclusions we did. Is that what the First District does on every case?
Unfortunately, no. So I'm going to talk about 2016 because in 2016, your court, the 10th district, and the 1st district had the exact same amount of terminated cases, 963. Now, like you said, some of those cases are cases where you didn't have jurisdiction, and they have judgment entries for that reason. Some of them were dismissed for various reasons. Some of them the parties might have dismissed. But in 2016, your court had 516 full opinions. The 1st district was only 161.
So what happened to the rest of those cases?
It was only judgment entries rather than full opinions. And the problem with that is, well, there are several problems with that, but one of the big problems.
Explain to people who might not understand,
Sure.
What's the difference between a judgment entry and a full opinion?
A judgment entry is a 2, sometimes 3-page entry that basically says you win or you lose. It might give a little bit of facts and reasoning, but it's not a full opinion. It doesn't give the full reasoning behind the opinion, and it doesn't set precedent. So in the future, attorneys cannot cite that case as authority for their case. A full opinion, on the other hand, it tells the facts, it tells the procedure, it goes into detailed legal reasoning, clear legal reasoning, why the judges came to the decision that they did. So obviously, a full opinion is going to be more transparent, but also it serves as precedent. So in the future,
it's more reliable then, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely more reliable.
So what happens if I'm a party and I went ahead and I spent the money on an attorney, the case was argued, and I get a judgment entry and not a full decision, and I don't like the outcome? Can I appeal a judgment entry to the Supreme Court?
Well, you can try, but the Supreme Court isn't going to take it. And the reason why, a judgment entry by nature only affects the parties involved, because it cannot be used for precedent in the future. It's only for that particular decision. And of course, the Supreme Court is a court of limited jurisdiction, so it only takes the cases that it wants to take, and the cases that it wants to take are those that are going to affect more than just the parties involved.
Yes, because courts of appeals have to take every appeal as long as they have jurisdiction. So there's what people call an appeal as of right, as opposed to a discretionary appeal, correct?
Correct, yes.
So I was just really surprised to hear that. Now, your job, you've done a lot of things in your background.
Hmm.
Interestingly, we both graduated from Miami University.
Yep.
You with a degree in journalism, me with a degree in sociology, gerontology.
Uh-huh.
But you know, you talk about some of those other work that you did. But right now, you serve as a clerk to a common pleas judge, correct?
That is correct. And my legal career has mostly been working in appellate advocacy. I actually started working at the First District Court of Appeals under Judge Painter, and I've mostly done appeals in my career since then. So this is new for me, working at a trial court. I'm glad I'm doing it. I have a wonderful judge that I work for, and plus it's giving me more of an insider's view of what happens before the appeal.
And so if you make it to the First District Court of Appeals, well, you're used to writing decisions, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So I did it for Judge Painter when I worked for him, and now for Judge Baradon. We, in his courtroom, when we put out a decision on a motion, I think in the year and a half that I've worked for him, there's only been 2 times when it wasn't a full decision with very clear reasoning. And the reason we didn't do it well, it's not something I necessarily want to share. But point is, we put out full decisions. I think the parties deserve to know why they have won or lost their motion.
Well, sure, especially in our legal system where the loser doesn't have to pay, like in England.
Yes.
So if you lose, you still have to pay your attorney. So
Yes.
that's what he might not having to pay. So is it just sort of up to the judge on the Court of Appeals whether they write a decision, a full decision, or a judgment entry?
It is. Yeah, the judge on the Court of Appeals gets to decide that. So I had a client years ago, and she asked me to help her with an appeal, and it was on a substantive issue. And to me, it was on an issue that was not settled in Ohio. So I had a feeling we might lose, but I was still hopeful, and we ended up losing the case. And unfortunately, we got a judgment entry rather than a full opinion. And when my client asked me, can we take this to the Supreme Court, I had to tell her no. I mean, you can ask, but it's not going to happen because by nature, this judgment entry only affects you. And it was very disappointing for her. It was disappointing for me. And I thought it was the wrong thing for the court to do.
Sure, because the Supreme Court looks at things that would be of great public interest.
Yes.
In deciding which cases that they take.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's a judgment entry that's just pretty much limited to that individual, that
Yes.
pretty much shoots down what they would need to get the Supreme Court to review it, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's very unfair to the parties themselves, and also to any future parties who might have the same issue, because their attorneys can't cite to it either.
So this is what I find with women running for office is if you ask women, why are you running for office? They usually have like particular reasons why they're running. And it's really clear to me, you're running because there's stuff you want to get done.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of things that I think need to be changed. And
So
I think I'm the best person in this race to do it.
That's great to hear. So your website, I loved your website because you not only had about you, but you had a vision.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe talk about what your vision is for the First District Court of Appeals.
Bottom line, I want people to be treated fairly and equally. And unfortunately, it's no secret that that doesn't always happen. There have been times when I personally was in court where I didn't feel like I was treated respectfully at all, or that my client wasn't treated respectfully at all. And that needs to change, because to the person who is standing in front of the judge, it is the most important case in the world. And judges need to treat it that way because it is very important to them. So that's what I want to see happen. And I like I said earlier, I think there are some specific things that we need to do. I think the judiciary really needs to work on investigating their own implicit biases. I think that should be a requirement, not just for judges, but also for attorneys in the state of Ohio. So I think that will help reduce the disparities in our justice system.
Well, and that's a perfect thing to say on June 19th, which is Juneteenth. and essentially the day that slavery was abolished everywhere in the United States.
Yes. Actually, I had a conversation with my 6-year-old about it this morning, and my 4-year-old. My 4-year-old was more interested in dragons, but my 6-year-old, as we were talking about it, he had heard of June 16th or of Juneteenth before. And I told him, I hadn't heard about it until a few years ago. And frankly, that's wrong. And I'm so glad that at least in his school, he is learning about history now at age 6.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of change going on in this country. And I was discussing with someone earlier that it's very painful for a lot of the people in the United States, but we are actually changing, and I'm so pleased. And when you look at countries across the world, especially countries like in Europe, there's been large migrations of people from Africa, and so those countries are multicolored. But I know they're looking at the United States saying, boy, there's a lot going on right there right now. But I mean, we really are going to be setting an example for the rest of the world when we get through this. And I am confident we will get through this, and that we're going to emerge better, stronger, more respectful of each other, and more protecting of each other. And I think the judiciary, you're stepping up at a perfect time, because even some of the decisions we've seen this week, were it not for the judiciary, many people of diversity and color and disparity would be stepped on by some branches of the law.
Absolutely. I see the judiciary as the branch that truly does protect people who aren't in the majority from being oppressed.
Yes. So talking about the campaign, it's an interesting time in a pandemic, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's unprecedented, obviously.
It is. And so, things like this, like our interview, really is taking lemons and turning it into lemonade, because I think had it not been for the pandemic, we might not have even thought about doing something like this.
Right.
And so it gives me a chance to introduce people to you, and you a chance to introduce people to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed you've gotten a lot of endorsements in your race, and quite a few labor endorsements.
Yes.
What do those endorsements mean to you?
It makes me really proud. My grandfather was a UAW member back in the 50s and 60s in South Bend, Indiana. And that I've been taught since I was a kid that working families really are the backbone of our country, and we need to protect workers' rights. We need to make sure that that we respect everybody, regardless of what their job is. Whether somebody makes $100,000 a year or $30,000 a year, there's still, as Senator Brown will put it, there's a dignity of work. And it's so important to me that we respect people for whatever it is that they're doing. So I've worked really hard to maintain good relationships with labor. And when I make sure that everything that I have printed is through a union shop. And that's important to me, not just for the endorsement issue, but also because I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to protect workers.
That's fantastic. Now, did you have a primary that you?
Not this year, no.
Okay, that's a good thing. But you were on the ballot 2 years ago, right?
I was, yes. I was on the ballot 2 years ago. My opponent 2 years ago was, how in every city, every town, there's that one name that everybody knows no matter what. That's who I ran against. And everybody was expecting I would get stomped by like 25, 30 percentage points. And I came within 3. And
that's impressive.
Yeah. And it shocked a lot of people. And had I not come that close, I probably wouldn't have done it again, because as you very well know, it's hard campaigning. It's it's a lot of work, and it takes time from your family, and it's not an easy thing to do. But because I came that close, I decided, yeah, I'm going to try it again. I really want to make a difference.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. So you live in Finneytown, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so that people like in Northeast Ohio know where Finney is in relation to Cincinnati. Is it a suburb? Is it?
Yeah, it's a suburb. It's northwest of the city. Um, it's a fairly small neighborhood, a diverse neighborhood. I love where I live. I love our school system, and I feel very happy and pleased that we chose this neighborhood.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So I have so appreciated the opportunity to talk with you today. Every time I talk to a judicial candidate, I learn so much, and hopefully if we both get elected, we've already forged a bond where we can work together for the benefit of the state of Ohio, especially with you running for the Court of Appeals. I think people don't realize that you actually work for the state,
Yes.
even though like Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland have just one Court of Appeals in their county.
Mm-hmm.
You actually are really more looking over the state as well as your local courts. So is there anything you would like to say to sort of close it out for folks today?
Well, first of all, Judge Brunner, I really appreciate being here. And I am, again, very glad to be on a slate with you running for the Supreme Court. But I want voters to understand, first of all, without party designation, there's a huge undervote in the judicial races. So it's up to us as candidates and the parties, and also just people in general who have heard us and like what we say, to help spread the word, so that people look us up, they research us, and they understand what we stand for before they go to the ballot box. So we're trying to make sure that the undervote is cut down, because it's important that people know who their judges are.
Well, this is Ginger Bock, and I'm Jennifer Brunner. This is Achieving Justice, and we thank you all so much for watching. And Ginger, I wish you the very best in the election. It will be here before we know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thanks.